Thank you for joining us today as we have our closing interview of our first Women in Marketing series. And once again, Esther Elkas is our fearless chair of networking programs at the American Marketing Association. I wish she were here, but she's the one, this was her brainchild, and she's been remarkable in putting together a good series of interviews. And it's been my pleasure to participate in this and get to know all of these amazing women better, and also to share what we've learned about from their backgrounds with all of you. And I'm Youngmi Park, and I'm an adjunct lecturer and also work on various entrepreneurial projects. And I'm delighted today to interview Michelle Chiantera, Vice President of America's Growth Marketing and Global Segments and Industries at Cisco. So before we begin the interview, I'd like to extend our thanks to Smartling, our Diamond event partner, for believing in and promoting women in marketing. And we also highly value our premier marketing partner, Greenbook, for supporting the AMA all days of the year. And last but not least, a special thank you to the AMA New York board and our team of volunteers for their continued contributions, commitments, and dedication to making events like this happen. So the American Marketing Association New York thrives in the center of the world's most influential business city, raising the profile of marketing, providing professional development and networking opportunities, and serving as a resource of marketing industry news and events. At AMA New York, we work every day to inspire, support, and celebrate brilliance in marketing. And as an AMA New York member and board member, it's my pleasure to invite you to access all the resources we have. We have not only a compelling database of data, tools, and people in the New York area, but we also provide a gateway to the rest of the marketing community across the country. I invite you to join our dynamic organization to access essential resources in our library, which include how-to benchmarking data, interactive tools, best practices, to expand your network and knowledge through our full schedule of events around new innovations, special interests, and emerging trends, and to network among your peers, connect with leaders who are helping to shape the future of marketing, and finally, to elevate your leadership profile by volunteering with us and providing your expertise, your resources, and your mentoring for our other members. We also have a plethora of other exciting events coming up that I'd like to make you aware of if you don't already know, and also if you already knew about them, to encourage you to register because they are great. First, on October 29th, we have our Marketing Hall of Fame, and it's going to be a little bit different this year because this is the first time we're doing this online. We're going to bring you a number of our wonderful inductees from over the years to share their thoughts about the new future of marketing, how marketing is changing in light of the global pandemic, and all of the other challenges that we're experiencing, like climate change, social justice, etc. So please hurry up and register for that. And on November 5th, Catherine Peak and Alan Lee of Make Me Reach will provide insights on how to develop your social advertising strategy to guarantee happy holidays for your brand. And then on November 12th, we have our second Marketers Toolkit workshop on virtual meetings and events in virtual reality, conducted by Gordon Meyer, New York City chapter president of the VR AR Association. So we're going to begin this webinar in just a moment.
Michelle Chiantera is Vice President of America's Growth Marketing at Cisco, a $60 billion company whose technology provides a world of potential for businesses around the globe. But this story is about Michelle's journey and how a woman with great ambition developed her sharp ear for listening, an eye for the big picture, and a voice that communicates her business acumen and empathy for others. Learn how her upbringing from a working class family and her decision to leave her hometown for a big city paved an unexpected path from a venture capital firm to a software startup to a Fortune 100 company, and how along the way she built a personal brand that drives her every move. Hosted by Youngmi Park, an expert in strategic marketing and executive leadership, let's listen as Michelle Chiantera takes her seat at the table.
So, Michelle, how are you doing today?
Doing great. And me, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm fine. We're so delighted to have you here. All right, so let's get into it. Michelle, tell us a little bit about how you ended up where you are now. Tell us your story.
Well, I grew up in upstate New York, where I'm living now. I studied in upstate New York as well. I went to a small Jesuit school called Lemoyne College in Syracuse. And when I graduated, it became really obvious to me that it was going to be challenging to start a career in Syracuse, New York. The economy hadn't really been flourishing, and there was not as many options to build on a career. So made a decision to relocate to Raleigh, North Carolina, where
Hmm.
uh, that was in the mid 90s, and that is actually when that area was really starting to take off, and
Mhm.
there were a lot of job opportunities. And I stumbled on a role working for a venture capital company. It was honestly my first job where it pretty much felt like I was getting my MBA, but I was
Mhm.
getting paid for it because I
Mm.
had to understand all aspects of business. Although I was
Mhm.
hired as a marketing communications manager,
Mhm.
um, I had to understand how business worked. And it was a
Mhm.
really small firm, eight
Mhm.
of us,
Mhm.
two of them being the partners that were running all the deals, a CFO, office manager, myself, and a couple fellows. And it really got immersed into how business worked. And I would say that probably was the most influential job that I had relative to where I am today. Because that's when I really recognized the need for solid business acumen.
Mhm.
And then started to see all these companies go public, and I thought to myself, maybe I need to be part of one of those startups. So I did what I thought was smart and followed our CFO to a startup, and that's where I entered the technology industry. It was a network management software company. And this is also where I got exposed first to indirect channels, selling through partners. I was hired as a partner program manager. They're basically building their partner program to sell their products through that channel.
Mhm.
I knew nothing about it, but I knew that it was something that was really important to the business and we needed to get done. So just threw myself into it, self-educated to understand what reselling means. And I was there for about a year. It became quickly obvious to me that although I got a lot of working in small businesses, the venture capital firm, and then of course the startup, but I really felt like I needed to go to a larger company so I could get that level of training and investment to really accelerate my career. And I had a friend of a friend who told me about a job at Cisco, and there I was, right? 20 years ago, joined Cisco. It's been exactly what I expected. I've been able to build and grow in my career because of the investment the company makes. But I also, along the way, really forced myself going back to some of those things that I learned at the venture capital firm, like really understand business. So I ensured that as I was moving through my career, that I was doing things that would build on my acumen, my marketing skills, and then ultimately me becoming a leader.
Those are three like mega changes that you went through, and I'm so surprised that your first job out of school was at a VC firm, and it must have been really fun during the 90s because they were on fire then, right?
It was great. It
Yeah.
was it was awesome to be a part of it, and like I said, I learned so much.
Tell us about one of the really exciting moments of learning. What was kind of a major lesson that you took away from that VC firm? Because you told us about the general lesson, but give us something specific.
I grew up in upstate New York, and I'm actually the first in my entire family to go to college. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom and did some
Uh-huh,
things outside the home, got
uh-huh,
involved in school and stuff. My dad is still an
uh-huh,
electrician,
uh-huh.
so I I did not have that platform to lean on because neither of my parents really worked in a professional environment, and I knew I wanted to be in a business role,
Mm-hmm,
but I wasn't able to learn that, so I relied so much on people.
mm-hmm,
And probably the biggest lesson learned that I had at the venture capital firm is this: one of the partners, his name is Dennis. He actually kind of took me under his wing and really gave me some real coaching on how to show up in an office, how you operate in a professional environment, how you actually uh, carry yourself in a meeting,
mm-hmm.
what you wear when you're going to a meeting with someone you're trying to sell something to. And I know that probably sounds obvious,
No,
but
it's not. Right.
because of my upbringing, I didn't. I mean, I watched my dad go into work every day in jeans
Mm-hmm.
and a jacket that was branded the company he worked for. Like
Right, right,
so,
right.
it was I have such gratitude for that
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't have to do that,
Right.
but I really learned just practical things that they don't
That's
teach you when you're in college.
that's fantastic. So how was it different at the VC? At the startup, I mean. How?
Wow, it was drastically different. And again, it was something that I'm so happy I experienced. So
Mm-hmm.
the VC firm was like this very professional environment. They wore jackets and ties
Mm-hmm.
every single day.
Yep.
And then I go to this startup, and it
Mm-hmm.
was a lot younger, a
Uh-huh.
lot younger.
Uh-huh.
It was where we had in our venture capital firm, we had like designated offices. We had like a big
Uh-huh.
open space,
Mm-hmm.
and people dressed however they wanted. We worked crazy hours. It was like that true, what you read about when
Mm-hmm.
Silicon Valley was like at its
Sure.
peak. Like I got to
Sure.
see that
Wow.
firsthand, but on the East Coast.
Wow.
And it was, just the diversity
Mm-hmm.
that we were able to experience, because you had people that were in the workforce for a while, then you had early in careers coming in. It was just it was a cool thing to watch, and you got to learn from all different shapes and sizes. Where at the venture capital firm, I was absolutely the lowest man on the totem pole, so
Mm-hmm.
I was able to learn up, but at the startup, I was able to learn across.
Oh, interesting. And what was the most memorable experience that you had there?
Like I said, I was asked to build their partner program, and part of what I did to build the partner program is I actually went out and talked to our partners,
Mm-hmm.
and it was an interesting time because we didn't have an established program to say, okay, if you sell these things, you're going to get X in return
Mm-hmm.
to reinvest in your business. That was the point of hiring me.
Mm-hmm.
So my conversations with the partners was very very much information gathering.
Mm-hmm.
And this one partner who was our largest partner, it was a woman run business,
Oh,
and this woman
uh-huh.
would not take would not take people's calls from the company that I worked for. She just was like, go. Her perspective was, you guys go figure it out. I'm not going to help shape this. Let me know when you finalize the program, and then I'll be interested to have a conversation. So I probably tried to get to her like 3 or 4 different times. And finally, she ended up picking up the phone for whatever reason. I'll never know. I'll never know why. And we ended up having a lovely conversation about what I was trying to accomplish. And very quickly, it actually went to less about business and just more about how did you end up in this position? And she just took interest. So she said, you know what? Why don't you come out? This company was in Detroit. Why don't you come out to Detroit? Let's sit down. Let's have a real conversation, and I'll help give you guidance on how you should build this program. I hung up the phone. I go running into the sales leader's office. I'm like, you are never going to guess what just happened. And his jaw dropped, and he said, you're not going alone. I'm going to go with you. We're going to, he was over the moon. And this woman ended up being an advocate for us. And just, and I, that at that point, so there's my story. But at that point, I knew how important relationship building was to influence and get things done. And I never asked her. I wish I did. I actually regret not asking. Why did you pick up the phone, and why did you take an interest? But I fundamentally believe the reason why is because we quickly established a relationship and a common ground, and it wasn't about just business. It was about other things, and that just made the conversation go a bit easier and ultimately get us in front of her.
Fabulous, fabulous. Do you think gender had anything to do with it? Because it probably was unusual to have a woman, reaching out to her, and she was unusual in her position, right?
100%. In fact, I don't even know the percentage, but if I was to guess, that network management software company, it probably had maybe 15% of the people there were women.
Then you moved on to Cisco. So each time you moved, you went to a progressively bigger company, and this time it was
Yes.
exponentially bigger. So how was that?
I felt like a uh, a a little fish in the ocean when I joined. It was so overwhelming because there was structure, there was process, everything from how you manage meetings. Like before, it was the wild west. Like we just figured it out at the VC firm and at the startup because we were all in the same space. Here I come to this company and I'm dealing with people all over the world. So it was pretty overwhelming. And I would say, in fairness, it took me time to acclimate to that kind of environment. And it took me time to understand how to get things done, because it wasn't like I could just walk across the hall and say, hey, can you help make a decision on this, right? There's probably 25 people that need to be involved. So that was something that I had to learn by watching and listening, seeing how people behave, and really understanding like the undertone of the culture to be successful. And honestly, that required a whole different way of thinking.
So how has gender affected your own career? Especially you've been in male-dominated environments. So how has that been a factor?
If you would have asked me when I got in the car and drove from Syracuse, New York to Raleigh, would you expect to be a vice president at Cisco? A $60 billion company, top relative to Fortune 100. I would have been like, no, that's just not going to happen. But as I started to progress in my career, I quickly realized that it was less about gender. Because look, everybody's got a story, right? Everyone has a story. And I had situations. I had one manager say to me, it was mind blowing. I had one manager say to me, look, you're just never going to become a director in this company. You just need to act more like guys act. You can't bring in empathy and that sort of thing. I'm paraphrasing, but it was
Which company
because I
was
actually
that?
cared about people, right? I
Uh-huh.
actually cared about my team.
Yeah, which
And
company which company was that, by the way?
Cisco,
Oh, that
Cisco,
was Cisco.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um, and you know that, but I always went back to, um, I don't want to make this about gender. I went back to, I am going to be confident in what I'm doing.
Mhm.
I am going to achieve what I set out to achieve. And I'm very clear about that, right? I actually reflect on my career on an
Mhm.
annual basis. Um, so I think I built a sense of confidence in my decision making. And I think it goes back to, I was allowed to make decisions when I was
Mhm.
very young. I wasn't told.
Mhm.
Um, so I would like to see a more balanced workforce at
Mhm.
Cisco. Right now, the sales organization that I work with, albeit as I said earlier, there's more female, but it is predominantly male. But I really feel like when I come to the conversation with my point of view, my perspective,
Mhm.
and confident in it,
Mhm.
I feel like that has broken barriers down.
Mhm.
And I also will say this, this is a big thing at Cisco.
Mhm.
If I'm going to walk into a conversation with a sales leader or one of our partners who's running a
Mhm.
business, and I don't come in with credibility and have really solid understanding of what's happening in that business,
Mhm.
whether I'm a woman or a man,
Mhm.
that is going to determine,
Mhm.
right, how the conversation is going to progress.
Sure. Sure. So, a lot of wisdom in what you're saying, but when we let's zoom out a little bit further, and it's not only Cisco that we have these imbalances. So, what are your thoughts on why things don't change? Because I bet there are an awful lot of women who have similar attitudes. I'm going to bring myself to the table. I'm going to
Yeah.
show up and be credible. So, what's going on here?
So I think that women sabotage themselves.
Mhm.
I really do. I'm gonna give you a story about this woman that worked for me for a while,
Mhm.
and she's so brilliant and
Uh-huh.
she had so much potential, but
Mhm.
she would hurt herself in situations. So I'll give you an example of the story. She had two young kids, and her evenings were just completely tied up with running them around and doing what mom and dads do. And her husband was also working, and he his schedule was much less predictable than hers. Sometimes you have to work late or whatever. And what she would do every single time someone would say to her, "Hey, you need to be on this call at 6:30,"
Mhm.
what she would do is she would spend 5 minutes talking or in an email saying, well, I can't do this. I've got to bring my kids here. I won't have time. And I finally said to her, stop, 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 stop. Unfortunately, people make assumptions, right? I
Mhm.
can't control that.
Mhm.
People make assumptions that you're not capable because you're too busy doing stuff with your family. Here's what you do. You say, actually, you know what? 6:30 doesn't work for me, but I'd be happy to talk to you tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Mhm.
Like, change your conversation,
Mhm.
because there you're just giving them ammunition
Sure.
to come back and say you're not capable.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes that we as women, we tend to show our cards a little too
Mhm.
much,
Yep.
and you don't need to.
Mhm.
I can tell you what I do, because I know where I get my energy. I am a morning person. I am not an evening person. I block my calendar, and I work for a global company. I block my calendar from 6 o'clock on for a couple reasons. One, I know I'm not a great decision maker after 6 o'clock. Two, I want to be with my family and I need downtime, right? And three, I need to re-energize. Every time now, I of course take calls between 6 and 9 if they're really important, right? I mean, that's get to give and take. I have probably had no more than twice someone say to me when I say, sorry, I can't be on, but I can do it tomorrow at this time. Maybe twice people have said, well, is there any way you can change your commitment? Is there any way you could just try to be on?
Right.
9 times out of 10, they take it that I don't have to explain.
No.
I can't be there. I could be in another meeting. So I just think sometimes we just need to hold our cards in a bit and saying no, but giving an alternative is okay.
No, that's fabulous. Tell us about a couple, one or two people who had a major influence on your career along the way. You already gave us a couple of stories about the experience and that one person at the VC. Was there somebody else who really made a difference?
Yes, I was early in my time at Cisco, and I had this manager, and she also played a key role in shaping who I am today from a communications perspective. And I'll tell you a story because
Okay.
I think I think a lot of people that are in a position in their career where they're not quite in a leadership role yet, but they want to be. I think this absolutely helps. So Cisco had just entered the phone business, and it was a big deal. And I was at that time running commercial marketing in the United States. So I was asked by my manager to put together a presentation to present to somebody that was senior to her on our plan around how we're going to drive more phone sales in the United States. So I go off and I build my plan, and I come back and I'm presenting to this guy, and he's fairly intimidating and opinionated. He's known for sharing his thoughts like immediately, like you're on slide one and you never get off of it. So I start my presentation, and I start by saying, okay, so we know we want to drive more phone sales. Here's what we're going to do from a marketing perspective. We're going to stand up this landing page. We're going to drive customers to this with this offer, and we're going to work with these partners to get them to help us scale. And I probably got those sentences out of my mouth, and he said to me, "You are so not strategic." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And he's like, "You jump right into the tactical stuff. This is so not strategic. We can't take this to sales. Go off and figure out how to do this." And I was like, "Okay." Go back to the drawing table, and I'm like, "You know what? I'm going to talk to my boss." So I go in, and she says, "Look, here is a lesson you need to learn. There's two things. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And it's also about focusing on the why and the what, not always the how." So I go back and I start. He is never this bad. I go back and I start my work. And she said, "I'm going to give you a framework to work from. This is very centered on marketing, but it's transferable." She said, "Start every conversation with what you want to accomplish, the audience that you're talking to, what you're going to offer them, how you go to market, and then the marketing that supports it."
I don't know why we don't teach that. That's communication, right?
100%. And I will tell you, young me, so I go back, I call this guy up, I said, "Give me another shot." He says, "Yes." I go back, and I start with the growth opportunity in the phone business is XYZ. This marketing campaign is going to drive 15%, whatever the words I used were, but I changed the whole dialogue. I kid you not, that guy became my biggest fan, and he's still an advocate for me today. He's still an
Fabulous.
advocate.
That's
And
fantastic.
suddenly I became strategic. It was
Fantastic.
just how I delivered it,
Uh-huh.
and it focusing on the what and the why first, then the tactics.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Transformed how I communicate till this day.
I love that story. I love that story. So, since you touched on marketing, what do you think about how marketing has changed? And also, what role do you think marketing needs to play in our changing world?
So, marketing has drastically changed, and it's not because the function
Hmm.
woke up one day and said, we want to change. It's changed because the customer has changed. You
Hmm.
go back, I mean, the first, I don't know, 5, 8 years in my career, like my job in marketing, we hosted a ton of events, we did telemarketing campaigns, we enabled salespeople, like very traditional marketing.
Hmm.
Then comes the internet, then comes this notion of digitization, and suddenly our customers started to drive the ship, right? They were in control. They now had a source to go find information, to do their due diligence, to understand their needs, and they did it online and didn't require them talking to a salesperson first or coming to an event to learn. So, marketing had to drastically shift what we did. We needed to be present. Yes, events were still important, but we needed to be present online digitally, and we needed to anticipate our customers' needs. So, where we were investing a lot of dollars in physical events, now you're seeing marketing and invest in technology to
Hmm.
actually enable us to anticipate our customers' needs so we can be smart about where we show up online, targeted, and best enable our salespeople. Because what's changed from a sales perspective and why marketing is so important is salespeople need to know what their customers are doing digitally, right? They're not picking
Hmm.
up the phone and calling them until they're well down the path.
Right.
So the need for that knowledge is massive. And then I'll just make a comment because I don't want to make this a whole COVID discussion, but we just hit another turning point,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Where marketing
Huge.
is going to need to rethink. We're going
Huge.
to be moving from business driven brands to purpose driven brands. We're going to be going from advertising out of the home to advertising into the home. Our language is going to have to change because now we're marketing to people that are sitting in their personal space,
Right.
not in
Right.
their office where they can
Right.
compartmentalize
Right.
work and home. So this is going to have a whole nother level of transformation for
Right,
marketing.
right, right. Very, very well said. I think it was already underway, but now everybody's motivated, right?
Yep,
This is accelerating that whole
that's a way to put it.
process. Yeah. You have so many brilliant tips. So
And they're
give us
not,
one,
and I learned them all from people.
yeah, give us one more tip for a woman who is aspiring to leadership in a marketing role.
Oh, let me see what I can dig out. Um, I think that I think that if you're aspiring to be in a marketing role, a leadership role, you want to ascend in your company. I encourage people to go through a very, very simple exercise.
Hmm.
And the exercise is as follows. You need to figure out what are the 3 words that come into people's minds when someone says your name. Because what those 3 words are is essentially your brand, right? And how people perceive you.
Hmm.
So what I encourage people to do is go out and talk to 15 people, 20, 10, whatever. Ask what 3 things come to mind. Gather all that data, rationalize it. 3 that come to the top, ask yourself, right? Is that Is that what you want to be?
Mhm.
And are you comfortable with that? So when I did this exercise um, a while back, the three words that came up were business acumen,
Mhm.
transparency,
Mhm.
and authenticity.
Oh, beautiful. Wonderful words.
And what I do with those words, so those are, that's my
Uh-huh.
brand. So what I do with those words is I make sure that I am delivering that in everything that I do. So as an example, um, I am incredibly transparent with my leadership team when things are changing around us. I share what I can share without getting fired,
Mhm.
right? And that's being authentic to who I am.
Mhm.
So I walk the talk. The words are not just words on a slide.
Mhm.
The actions are there.
Mhm.
And some people that I've worked with in a mentorship capacity that do this,
Mhm.
they don't feel as
Mhm.
comfortable with a word as an example. And what I encourage them to do is use that. Like I will say things like, guys, I am an incredibly transparent communicator.
Mm.
Sometimes you're going to like what I say, sometimes you're not, but you're always going to know
Mm.
where you stand. But I encourage people to use it so your actions and your words correlate. And I think that helps people to just get really clear on the gifts that they have, and the uniqueness that helps to get them to a position they want to be in, and create a diverse working environment.
Oh, I love that. I love that. There sounds like there's a real theme of you defining who you are for other people, not letting them define you, and
Yeah.
also carving out what your life is going to look like. So that's fabulous. So tell us a little bit about your leadership philosophy and style, um, and how you cultivated that.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to those three words, right? My leadership style is, I am very, very transparent
Mhm.
and open. I'm also somebody that I actually love the work, and it's funny because as I take over a new team, I
Mhm.
really have to make sure that I communicate this because it can be misinterpreted. Like I love to work side by side with my team, and
Mhm.
that might be interpreted as, oh, she's a micromanager, but I'm really not. It's that I love the work and I love to get into what's happening on the ground so I can make the best possible
Mhm.
decisions. I definitely prioritize people. I think that you can have the best strategy, but if you don't have a great culture, what is that saying? Culture eats strategy for
Mhm.
breakfast.
Mhm.
You can't get things done unless you've got people that want to follow you
Mhm.
and be a part of whatever adventure you're going on. And that requires you to invest in them. And it definitely has to come with a balance, right? There's when you have to make tough business decisions,
Mhm.
you have to come with a balance. And then one of the things that I always say to myself is I look through four lenses when I'm making a decision. And if one of them is if I could check the box for one of them,
Mhm.
then the decision's okay. And it
Mhm.
is this good for Cisco? Is this good for the Americas, which is the region that I run? Is this good for my team? And is this good for me?
Mm.
So you think about that, you're never going to have all four.
Mhm.
If you do have all four, that's a beautiful thing. But I think
Uh-huh.
it's challenging to have all
Uh-huh.
four.
Uh-huh.
But if you can have one, like
Mhm.
I mean, I'll use something as horrible as if if we've had to do a layoff,
Mm.
right? It's
Mm.
certainly not good for me because I hate doing that.
Sure.
It's not good for my team because it creates disruption. It's not good for the Americas because it the work's still got to be done.
Mhm.
But it might be good for Cisco because we've got to save in costs. So
Right.
I
Right.
really try to use in my leadership those four lenses because if I
Mhm.
can tie it back to something
Mhm.
that I can explain,
Mhm.
going back to my transparency,
Mhm.
um, I have much more comfort in it. If I can't, I have a very, very hard time, because I am so transparent, you know,
Mm-hmm.
being a talking head. It doesn't work
Right,
for me.
right.
So
Let's take this one step further. People often wonder about the differences between how men and women lead. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen differences in general beyond yourself?
what I've observed is women appear to be more empathetic leaders. They, whether it's their natural instinct, I I don't know, but I see women play more of a role. Empathy is more part of how they lead.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I see plenty of men that
Uh-huh.
are empathetic as
Uh-huh.
well.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see with male leaders, in particular in a sales and marketing
Mm-hmm.
organization that I'm in,
Uh-huh.
they lead with a challenge in mind, right?
Uh-huh.
Like let's get this done, let's
Mm-hmm.
overachieve,
Mm-hmm.
and again, I see women do that, but the way it shows up is women will say something like, "Look, we've got this massive opportunity, let's go after it and get it done,
Mm-hmm.
and I really want you guys to take care of yourself throughout this process because the work is really going to get intense,
Mm.
and make sure that you're not overdoing it,
Yeah.
and you're still doing the things that you need to do personally." Where males will say, "Let's achieve this goal. We are going to knock it out of the park.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to bring all hands on deck. Let's be successful." And it's very, very success and challenge driven.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where the women, it's success and challenge driven, but it's more with a little bit more empathy.
Yeah, yeah. There's another important thing that I have noticed, and I'm trying to understand a little bit more deeply. There's a very different understanding and approach to managing your public persona, right? Your public brand between the genders. Doing the right thing, getting the work
Yes,
done, right?
yes, you're exactly
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yes, I
Uh-huh.
completely agree with that. Yep.
Great, great. So you travel extensively and lead a virtual team. What is one, a lot of people can easily see the difficulties of that. What is one benefit that you
Oh,
enjoy?
I
Yeah.
get to go to so many amazing places.
Uh-huh.
So I was in a global role where I had the world
Uh-huh.
3 years ago, and I will tell you, it was a moment in my career, and I've shared a couple,
Uh-huh.
but another moment in my career where I learned so much personally and professionally. I was able to travel to all different parts of the world to see how business is done, and I just fell in love with how business and culture works in parts of Asia. Like, I went to
Uh-huh.
Japan and I was actually able to experience, I mean, as crazy as this sounds, right? I mean, you I went into one of our partners' offices
Uh-huh.
and we put slippers on because you don't wear shoes,
That's right.
right?
Uh-huh.
And it just was so cool. And I have to be honest with you, I was humbled because I didn't have an appreciation. I always prided myself for being diverse in my thinking, diverse in how I build teams, and I am. Yet being exposed to that,
Yeah.
I just had such. I absolutely loved it, and
Uh-huh.
that is the thing I actually
Uh-huh.
miss the most. Is not
Uh-huh.
being in a global job. I do like being home more often, but
Hmm.
I do miss the most not being in a global job because that experience was
Yeah.
something I'll never forget.
Yeah. No, you can't have it as part of your arena if you haven't experienced it, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And all right, so in clothing, this has been so interesting and so wonderful. In closing, Michelle, tell us how people can learn more about you. How can they follow you and get more of your brilliant thinking?
So I'm active on LinkedIn, as well as Twitter. So that's an easy way to follow me. One thing I will leave you with
Mhm,
is, I go back to what I talked about with not having parents that grew up in a traditional office environment, I actually had to get all of my guidance and coaching, outside of my family. And throughout my career, I've leaned on several people
Mm,
that were friends, that were colleagues,
mhm,
whatever, that helped me to shape who I am.
mhm,
So one of the things that I always do is pay it forward.
mm,
So if I give one of these talks and somebody reaches out to me and they want additional career advice or they just want to have a quick chat, I am always willing to do that. It might take me 2 weeks to respond, but I'm always willing to do that. So the best place to get me is LinkedIn, and if anything's top of mind or anything that we've said collectively over the last hour, I would love to hear it and
mm.
happy to share more if it's helpful.
Great, great. Oh, you're brilliant and generous and so wise. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our
You're welcome. It
conversation.
was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.